Why Americans don't travel internationally and what we need to do to change that. What up, YouTube? It's your boy Jermaine, back with another video. Today, thought I would make a sit-down video talking about why Americans don't travel and what we need to do to change that. Wow, where do we even start here? Because there are a lot of reasons why Americans don't travel. There's a lot of things that set up in a way to sort of make it more difficult for people from the U.S. to travel. And let's just jump right into some of the reasons why people from the U.S. don't travel. One thing I must point out first off is time off work. This is literally the first thing I'm gonna have to address. I made a video a couple days ago talking about things I like about Europe and things I don't like about Europe. And in one of the comments, someone was talking about how Americans only get 2 weeks off a year. And I mean, where can you go in 2 weeks? If you get 2 weeks, where can you go? I mean, come on, think about this. You get 2 weeks off a year, and it takes you roughly a day to go from the US to like Asia. And it takes you roughly 1 day to go from the US to Europe. And it takes you roughly 1 day to go from the US to Africa, and you only get 2 weeks off. So it takes you a day to go there and then a day to come back. So realistically, you have, 12 days in a foreign country? And let's say you go to 3 different cities or 3 different countries in Europe in 12 days. That's just not enough time, yo. That's just not enough time. You're not going to experience it the same way that you would get to experience it if you had, I mean, gosh, even if you had a month off is much better than 2 weeks off. But a month to travel, and if you're trying to backpack around, I guess a month would still be kind of tight, but that would be so much better than 2 weeks. Come on, I don't expect every employer in the U.S. to all of a sudden give all of their employees 3 months off a year. I mean, come on, that realistically would not work. One problem I must point out is time off. It's very, very difficult. Usually when I'm traveling, I meet people who just have a lot of time. And what I mean by people who have a lot of time, like on this trip, I've met a couple school teachers because it's summertime right now and school is not in, so school teachers have, the summer off. Well, some school teachers have the summer off, I guess, if they're not teaching summer school. Or people who just do random gigs, sort of like myself. I met a guy earlier. He works in the wine industry, so he's getting ready to go back to California because right now is a pretty good time to work in the wine industry in California. And he also says he sells Christmas trees around Christmas time and around tax season. He does taxes every once in a while. He sort of has a job where he can work like crazy when tax season is in, and then around harvest time he can work like crazy in the fields, doing stuff with grapes and wine and stuff like that. And then when those things are not in season, he has tons of time to travel. And there's one thing I've noticed about the Americans that I do meet traveling. Either they're working and they're traveling, or like they have a job abroad and that's how they're traveling. Just here in Skopje, I met an American couple from California. The boyfriend took a job here and the girlfriend came along with. And the boyfriend told me that, man, one of the biggest reasons why I took this job was because we have the opportunity to come to Europe. Before, I never really had the time and I never had the opportunity to come to Europe because I only get 2 weeks off, and within 2 weeks I can't travel, I can't really go to Europe. But now, since I've taken this job here in Macedonia, we can take trips on the weekend. We can fly over to Paris and stay for 2 days. We can fly over to here and stay for 2 days. We can fly over to Germany and stay for 2 days. And he's like, now I actually have the opportunity to, get to see parts of Europe that I would not normally get to see if I was working a traditional job back home in the US. Time off work is a big problem. One way you can sort of get around that is if you work sort of jobs that allow you to travel, or jobs that you work a lot during one part of the year and then you have other times of the year off, such as like a school teacher would be the perfect example. But most other jobs back home, you just don't get a lot of time off, and that's really annoying. That's really, really lame. Another thing I must point out, now reason number 2 why I think a lot of Americans don't travel is how I want to say how like we're brought up. Okay, so like, you take Europe for example. You have a lot of kids who grow up, and when they hit 18, they don't move out. When they hit 20, they still don't move out of home. When they hit 22, they still don't move out at home. I have lots of European friends that are over the age of 25 that still live with their parents, and it's totally fine. It's totally acceptable, and that's just how it goes. Now, a lot of these countries are more Eastern Europe. I don't know too many people in the UK that still live back at home, and I don't really know too many people in Germany that still live back home. But I've definitely noticed in definitely Eastern Europe and Southern Africa, that whole region of the world, I notice a lot of people live home and they stay home much longer. Now, back in the US, in certain parts of the US, it's very, very common to move out of your parents' house when you're 18, when you're 19, when you're 20, or just right after high school. Myself, right after high school, right after the day I graduated, I was already out of my mom's house, and I was totally stoked to be out of my mom's house. But one problem with that, and I noticed that a lot of Europeans don't do this, and it just gives them more flexibility and more time. In the US, if you're the type of person that you move out when you're 18 and you go live out on your own, you start to accumulate bills that you have to pay for, okay? Maybe you have a car and you have to pay for the insurance, or maybe you have to pay a car payment, and then you also have to pay for your place to stay, like your apartment. And these things are gonna cost money. Hi, Christina. No, I'm just talking to myself. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good thing to do. Anyway, when I'm trying to make a video and I see someone I know in Skopje walking down the street, I think I've been here too long. But anyway, let's get back in this video. Yeah, so all of these things are gonna cost money, and it's bills that you're gonna have to pay every month. Okay, so now let's use this example. You're 18 years old, you move out. You get used to going to work, you get used to paying bills, you get used to just being your own person and doing your own thing. So now, 2 years later, you're 20 years old, and you wanna travel, you wanna take a trip, but you're just kind of stuck because you're like, yo, I can leave for 3 weeks, but there's no way I can leave for no more than 3 weeks because I'm gonna have to pay all of my bills for the 3 weeks that I'm gone. I'm gonna have to take time off work, and if you don't have a real job, you're not gonna get paid time off, so you're actually gonna have to work hard and save lots of money to afford the trip, to afford the flights, and then also to afford to cover your bills, which is a huge expense, which makes traveling very difficult versus a lot of Europeans that I know. They did a lot of traveling when they were younger, when they're still living at home. Maybe they live at home up until 25 years old. So they do a lot of their traveling anywhere from the ages of 18 to 25. Okay. So what do? So they go out, look for a job, and they don't really have to look for they don't really have to look for a really glamorous job because they're still living at home with their parents. So they don't have to pay for, they don't have to pay for rent, they don't have to pay for bills and stuff like that. So they go out, they find a job, they're able to save a very, very large percent of their income because they're still living at home and they don't have bills, and maybe their parents are still cooking for them, and they're 20 years old, they're saving tons of money versus, you have your American over here on the other side. They have a used car that they're paying car insurance for. They have a job that they want to keep because they see that they can move up in their job, and they want to move up in their job because they're already working and living out on their own, and they want to do well for themselves, versus the European who their whole idea, they're not really looking for a good job at 20 years old, just because they're still living back home, and it's just not the mindset is just not the same when you're living at home versus when you're out hustling and you're out bustling and you're out trying to make all the bills, and you're out paying all the bills and you're making all the money. So the Europeans over here, they just have an easier time saving money, and once again, they can easily go travel for 2 or 3 months because they don't have to pay any bills because a lot of them live back home with their parents, versus my American friends, which growing up, gosh, at 18, 19, 20 years old, everyone had an apartment. So it just makes traveling very difficult because you just got to pay for all of this stuff, And Europeans, on the other hand, it's very, very easy for them to travel versus Americans, just because they live in this region of the world that they're close to a lot of things. in the U.S. we live on the other side of the world, so to get anywhere we have to take a long haul flight to pretty much go anywhere. We have to take a long haul flight. I mean, of course, we can go down to South America, but if you are flying from New York and you want to go to Argentina, that's a long haul flight, you know? So it, geographically, we're kind of farther away, but that's really not an excuse because look at Australia. Australia is crazy far away. And I see Australians all over the place. And Australia doesn't have a very, very large population. I think there's about 23 or 24 or 22 million people in Australia. And there's about 42 million people in California. So, just to think like that, wow, Australians travel quite a bit because I see Australians everywhere, like everywhere. Now, on this trip, I haven't seen as many Australians, but yeah, for the small amount of Australians that they are, Australians travel quite a bit. But anyway, we're talking about Americans and why Americans don't travel. And third reason, let's talk about the third reason. The third reason why I think Americans don't travel. Okay, so back in the U.S., there is this whole keeping up with the Jones sort of thing. And maybe keeping up with the Jones is not the proper way to put it because when I hear the term keeping up with the Jones, the first thing I think of is someone who lives in the suburbs who has a 2-car garage house, 2-story house, and their neighbor gets a new car and then the next week they get a new car. That's what I think of when I think of keeping up with the Joneses. And I guess if I bought a new iPhone and then you bought a new iPhone and you're my homie and you bought a new iPhone just because I bought a new iPhone, I guess that's keeping up with the Joneses. Anyway, okay, keeping up with the Joneses. Okay, now reason number 3 why I think Americans don't travel is materialistic, yo. A lot of Americans, I'm just going to go ahead and call it out, are like very, very materialistic. And what I mean by that is, I'm not trying to tell anybody how to spend their money, but just one thing I noticed from traveling around the world, people tend to use things a little bit more than your average American. I know people back in my hometown, they'll go in their living room and they'll buy new couches and new furniture. They'll replace all the furniture in their living room. And the old furniture is perfectly good, but they'll just replace it because they just want a different color or they just want a different style. And the furniture that they're replacing is not 20 years old. The furniture is like 2 years old, okay? And you go out, you spend all this money on new furniture, and you spend so much time working, you don't even get a chance to chill in the living room. And I know some people, they'll spend all this money on furniture in the living room, and they'll have the furniture wrapped in plastic. And then on top of that, they'll tell people don't sit on the furniture. It's like, why do you spend all this money on this couch, right? And you have this couch wrapped up in plastic, and you tell people don't even sit on the plastic. Like, why bother even having the couch, Who wants to sit on a couch with like thick plastic around the couch? Like you can see the couch, but like you can't really feel the couch because it's wrapped in plastic. Who wants to sit on that? But I know people back home that do things like this. And gosh, let's not even talk about cell phones. When I'm back home, I see so many iPhone 10s. And traveling throughout Europe, I see a lot of iPhone 6s, a lot of iPhone 5s. Every now and then I may see an iPhone 4. Like people will buy a phone and use it for 5 years, use it for 4 years. When I know tons of people back home, they'll get an iPhone and keep it just for 1 year, and they're done with that iPhone. They got another iPhone. And, they're the same people who, they go to the mall and they got to get a new pair of shoes because they're going to the club or they're going to dinner with their friends and they need a whole new outfit just to wear to dinner. I mean, come on, dinner is only going to cost you, $25, but yet you spend $150 on an outfit just to wear to dinner. And what are you going to do with that outfit after dinner? Yeah, you're going to wear it again, but the next time you get ready to go to some half-decent dinner, you got to go buy a new outfit. You got to go buy a new pair of shoes, you got to go buy a new shirt, and you got to go buy a new pair of pants. And every now and then you might have to go get a new belt to match your shoes or to match your shirt. I mean, and just like literally spend so much money. Like I remember when I was younger, I would literally go buy an outfit to wear somewhere. But like now, I never buy an outfit to wear anywhere, yo. Like, I never buy shoes until I need new shoes. That's how I am now. Like, I literally have these skate shoes on, and when I was in Romania, I wanted to buy a new pair of skate shoes, and they're really, really nice. And I said, yo, these shoes are like perfectly fine. They're a little dirty, and they're a little broken in. I will wear these shoes until I get a hole in these shoes. That's pretty much my rule. I'm not just gonna go buy a new pair just to go buy a new pair. And this is one way I save a ton of money and I have money to travel. And I just don't fall into the whole trap of the whole materialistic lifestyle. Like, I love things, and I love quality things. I love nice things. But then I also realize that, okay, material things do get old, and experiences don't get old, and experiences, well, I guess experiences can get old, but experiences are, I guess experiences are things that no one can take from you, and experiences help you grow, and experiences change your life, and experiences change your perspective on life, and experiences are very, very important versus material things. But that's just my own 2 cents on that. I guess some people may disagree with me on that and say, oh, material things are so much better than going to travel and going to different countries. But me, I definitely love to travel. And let's think of a way that we could combat this. One way to combat this is just not to be so materialistic, not to go shopping all the time, not to go buy the latest phone just because you like to take Instagram photos and you don't even use the phone to the maximum capability. You don't need a new iPhone 10 if you are just taking Instagram photos. You can get by with an XR, or you can get by with an iPhone 8. Maybe you need an iPhone 10 if you are rendering 4K videos on your phone on the go. That way you would actually use it to its maximum capability. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents. And then there's also reason number two. And then there's also reason number two. A lot of, and then there's also reason. And then there's also reason number two, how a lot of Americans, when they're 18, 19, 20 years old, they get jobs, they move out if they don't go. Reason number two, how a lot of Americans, if they don't go to college right after high school, they may move out of home at 18, 19, 20 years old, get a place to stay, get a job, get a car, and they are more geared towards, trying to succeed at work, versus how you have a lot of Europeans who maybe they want to go to college when they're 20, or maybe they want to go to college when they're 21, so they just want to take. And then on the other hand, you have a lot of Europeans, maybe they want to go to college when they're 21 or 20 years old. So now they have a couple years in between high school and college, and they still live at home, and they may work a part-time job, save money, and then travel for a year. Versus Americans, we just don't. This is just something that we don't do. And then also reason number three, materialism and being the big shot, and buying this and buying that, and how Americans spend money on unnecessary things. Gosh, I know so many people who lose so much money every year on just cars. Yeah, on cars, because cars depreciate like crazy. So these are the 3 reasons. So if you like this video, I want you guys to give your homeboy Jermaine a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this from me, definitely hit that subscribe button. I am on this journey of traveling to 100 countries, and as of the making of this video, I've been to 57, so I'm super stoked. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and peace out, yo.